Good morning, students. Welcome back to this software engineering class. So in the last class, we were discussing about planning for a project. Okay, what are the activities for which the planning should be made? Those things we have discussed in the last class. And we haven't completed it. Still, we have to look into some other activities. How to plan for effort estimation, how to plan for process. Those things we have discussed in the last class. In today's class, possibly we will discuss about planning for project scheduling and resource, planning for quality, planning for configuration management, and planning for risk management and project monitoring. Those things possibly we will discuss in today's class. Well, coming to this project scheduling and staffing. In a project, the scheduling activity can be broken into two sub-activities, namely overall schedule and detailed schedule. Overall schedule and detailed schedule. Okay. Coming to this overall schedule, one method to determine the normal overall schedule is to determine it as a function of effort. Okay, any such function has to be determined from the data completed projects. Determined from data from completed projects using statistical techniques like curve fitting, regression curve fitting, and other means. Okay. This curve is generally non-linear as the schedule does not grow linearly with the effort. That you should bear it in mind. Okay. Coming to the next activity of this project scheduling, detailed scheduling. See, in the overall scheduling, we set some milestones. Okay. Once the milestone and the resources are fixed, we have to set the detailed scheduling. Okay. So before fixing the milestones and the resources, we cannot proceed with this detailed scheduling. Okay. For detailed schedule, the major tasks fixed while planning the milestone are broken into smaller schedules. Okay, in a very hierarchical order. Okay. For example, you see the detailed design phase can be broken into tasks for developing the detailed design for each module, review of each detailed design, fixing of defects found, like that. So these things, sub activities can be planned for. Okay. For each detailed task, the project manager estimate the time required to complete it and assign a suitable resources so that the overall schedule is achieved. Okay. At each level of refinement, the project manager determines the effort for the overall task from the detailed schedule and check it against the effort estimations. Okay. Yeah, for if this detailed schedule is not consistent with the overall schedule and effort estimates, the detailed schedule must be changed. Okay, you have to revise it. Okay, if it is found that the best detailed schedule cannot match the milestone effort and schedule, then the earlier estimation must be revised. Okay, so like this scheduling is a iterative process. Okay, and one thing you should know, bear it in mind that a detailed project schedule is always dynamic. Okay, it is not static. So changes may be needed because the actual progress to the project may be different from what was planned earlier, because newer tasks are added in response to change requests, otherwise because of other unforeseen situations like the okay. So changes are done as and when when the need arises. Okay, so that's about detailed scheduling. Our next planning activity is planning for quality. Okay, how to plan for quality. Okay, to ensure that the final product, software product is of high quality, some quality control activities must be performed throughout the development. Okay, a quality control task is one which a quality control task is one whose main purpose is to identify the defects in the development. Okay. The purpose of a quality plan in a project is to specify the activities that need to be performed for identifying and removing defects, and also to identify the tools and the methods that may be used for that particular purpose. Okay, so these are the basics of quality planning, quality for a software product. Okay, so there are several approaches to quality plan, like approaches to quality management, procedural approach, quantitative approach. Like this, there are several approaches out there. Okay. So much of the quality plan resolves around testing and reviews. Okay. We will have a separate discussion about this software testing and the software validation. There's a separate chapters are there for quality testing and validation. Okay. So the next activity is this risk management. Okay, we have to plan for risk management. See, one thing you should know that a software project is a complex undertaking. Okay, so unforeseen events may have an adverse impact on the cost of the project, schedule of the project, and the quality of the project. Okay, so this risk management is an attempt to minimize the chances of failure caused by some unplanned events. Okay. So the aim of risk management is not to avoid getting into projects that have risks, but to minimize the impact of the risk in the projects that are undertaken. Okay. So it is not, the aim is not to keep you away from the projects that might have risk, but rather the idea is to handle the risk that are already in the project, okay, or minimize the impact. Okay. And also, this risk is a probabilistic event. It may occur or it may not occur. Okay. So, in the event of occurring, what to do? Okay. That is the idea behind this. So, it should be clear that risk management has to deal with identifying the undesirable events that can occur. Okay, the probability of their occurring, and the loss if an undesirable event does occur in the project. Okay, that is the idea. So once this risk is known, strategies can be formulated for other reducing for either reducing the probability of risk occurring or reducing the effect of risk materializing. Okay, damage control. So this risk management resolves around risk assessment and risk control. So the main activities in the risk management is assessment and risk control. Okay, we should discuss about this risk assessment and risk control. Risk assessment. Okay, what is the goal of this risk assessment? The goal is to prioritize the risk so that the attention and the resources uh, can be focused on the more risky items. Okay, out of the given risks, you have to prioritize them. Okay, risk identification. So this risk assessment involves three steps, namely risk identification, risk analysis, and risk prioritization. Risk prioritization. So under this risk assessment, we are having these three activities. Risk identification is the first step in risk assessment, and it identifies all the different task risk for a particular project. Okay, these risks are project dependent, and it is difficult to identify them, and identifying them is an exercise. Okay, okay. So methods that can aid risk identification include checklist for possible risks, surveys, meetings, and brainstorming, and reviews of plans, processing, and work products. These are all some of the ways through which risks can be identified. Okay. The checklists of frequently occurring risks are probably the most common tool used in the industry nowadays. Okay, and most organizations prepare a list of commonly occurring risks for the projects, and these risks are prepared from the survey of previous projects. Okay, so checklist of frequently occurring risk is a mandatory one. Okay, see, some of the risk items are personal shortfalls, unrealistic schedules and budgets, developing the wrong software functions, developing the wrong user interface, gold plating, continuing streams of requirement changes, shortfalls in externally furnished components, shortfalls in externally performed tasks, real-time performance shortages, and um, suboptimal computer capabilities. These are all some of the risk items that we can bring it out. Okay. What to do in the next stage of risk assessment, that is risk analysis. In risk analysis, the probability of occurrence of a risk has to be estimated along with the loss that will occur if the risk does materialize. That we should do. This is often done through discussion, using experience and undertaking of the situation. Okay, but if the cost models are used for cost and schedule estimation, then same models can be used to assess the cost and schedule task. Okay. For example, in the COCOMO cost model, the cost estimate depends on the ratings of the different cost drivers. Okay, like this. Okay. The next activity is risk prioritization. Okay. Once the probabilities of risks materializing and losses due to materialization of different risks have been analyzed, they have to be prioritized. Okay. One approach for prioritization of the risk is through the concept risk exposure. Okay. We call it as RE, risk exposure. Exposure. Uh, it has a formula. Risk exposure is equal to the product of uh, uh, product of probability of risk materialization and loss incurred due to the unsatisfactory outcome. So simply we call it as RE equal to probability of UO into loss of UO. Loss of UO. Okay. So the first we have discussed about the risk assessment. Now we go for risk control. The main objective of risk management is to identify the top few risk items and then focus on them. So once a project manager has identified and prioritized the risks, the top risks can easily be identified. Okay. Then what comes next? The question then comes is what to do about them. Knowing the risk is of value only if you can prepare a plan for that risk so that their consequences are minimized, that the damage is minimized. Okay. So this risk monitoring is the activity of monitoring the status of various risks and their control activities. So that's what we do in the risk control. Okay. The next planning activity is project monitoring. Okay. A project management plan is merely a document that can be used to guide the execution of a project. Okay, that you should know. So even a good plan is useless unless it is properly executed. Uh, Execution cannot be properly driven by the plan unless it is monitored carefully and the actual performance is tracked against the plan. Okay. The monitoring requires measurements to be made to assess the situation of a project. If the measurements are to be taken during project execution, then we must plan carefully regarding what to measure, when to measure, and how to measure. So, the measurement planning is a key element in project planning. Also, how the measurement data will be analyzed and reported must also be planned. Excuse me. Must also be planned in advance to avoid the situation of collecting data but not knowing what to do with it. Okay. Without careful planning for data collection and its analysis, you cannot achieve these things. Okay. So, project monitoring and tracking. The main goal of monitoring is for project managers to get a visibility into the project execution, so that they can determine whether any action need to be taken to ensure that the project goals are met. Okay. Different types of monitoring must be done for a project. Okay. The three main levels of monitoring are activity level, status reporting, and the milestone analysis. Okay. Activity level monitoring ensures that the each activity in the detailed schedule has been done properly and within the time limit. Okay. This type of monitoring may be done daily in a project team meetings or by the project manager checking the status of all the tasks scheduled to be completed on that particular day. Okay. Now coming to the status report, the status reports are prepared weekly to take stock of what has happened and what need to be done. Okay. Coming to this milestone analysis, it is done at each milestone or every few weeks if milestones are too far apart. Okay. Analysis of actual versus estimated for effort and scheduling is often included in the milestone analysis. So we have covered almost uh, all the planning activities for project development. Okay, so it is a very important that planning should be done before any major task getting started. Without proper planning, you will end up with unforeseen errors. You will end up with unforeseen situations, and which might increase the development cost and also increase the delivery time, minimize the quality, and those things are there. Okay, that you should bear it in mind. Okay. So rest of the things we will see in the next class. Okay.